Thanks, Ben, for the introduction. It's a real pleasure to be standing here today. This is the first conference that Alvo's attended, and so I'll give you a little bit of background about the company and about myself. The name Alvo is actually Portuguese. It means target, and we focused on Brazil several years ago when we first came across this asset. We only listed last year, October 2022, and we raised $10 million. So let me tell you the Alvo story. In summary, we are focusing on high-grade copper and zinc in central Brazil. The asset that we bought from the government had a lot of drilling done in the 1970s and 1980s, over 30,000 metres of diamond drilling. We bought this asset in 2020, just before COVID hit, and then we sat on it until the point that we could get access, raise some capital last year, and now we're aggressively drilling and exploring throughout the district. We have an existing resource based upon the historical work that was done there on two targets called C1 and C3. That's about 4.5 million tonnes, mainly copper and zinc. There is some lead and silver associated with it. There is some gold associated with it as well. However, they never systematically assayed for gold. We're doing that now, so we'll be able to update the market with gold results as well as we go forward. Some of the drilling that has taken place already, we've completed about 7,000 metres of diamond drilling so far, and you can see some of the results that we've managed to come up with so far. High-grade copper, high-grade zinc. The widths and the depths of these intercepts are improving as we go, and we're pretty happy to say that we've confirmed the historical work that was being done, and now we're expanding what we've got. We've currently got 2 diamond rigs operating around the clock. We plan to continue our 10,000 metre diamond program. We will probably be drilling until the end of the year, and we'll double that program probably out to 20,000 metres in the next couple of months. So the real story about Alvo, in my mind, is we have the known resources, but then we also have the exploration potential. And this particular part of the country has never been explored systematically, and it's been idle because it's been in the government hands for over 40 years. So what we've done is we've accumulated land around the known deposits, and we've now got over 500 square kilometres, pegged within the same belt of rocks. So we see the upside of this particular project, not just the drilling that we're doing now, but it's the potential to build on those known resources and find new ones, because this style of mineralisation does tend to cluster. We've got cash, we've got a really tight corporate structure, a really experienced management team that have got a lot of experience and time in Brazil, and the project itself is located in an area that has to be the envy of many places in the world in terms of its infrastructure. So I'll touch on all those points. In terms of the company itself, we have about $7 million in the kitty. We're capped at around $29 million at the current market price, and our main shareholders include Sprott, Paragon, an institution out of Melbourne, and the RCF Opportunities Fund out of the USA. But over 70% of our shares are locked up with institutions, the board, and those major players. So that it's quite a tight structure, and what we really need is mums and dads and retail investors to get involved. Myself and Bo Nichols are both geologists. We've both lived and worked in Brazil for many years. Myself over 10 years, and Bo around the same time. And Graham is a lawyer who keeps us on the straight and narrow. So very simple structure, and yep. Okay, in terms of the country, in terms of the prospect, we're right in the middle of Brazil. So we're not in the Amazon, we're north of the capital city of Brasilia, and this is the start of our tenement package. The known deposits that were drilled by the government are called C1, 2, 3 and 4, quite original names. We've maintained that nomenclature for now. Of those, we own C1, 3, 4 and 5. C2 is not owned by us. So we're drilling currently, and we have resources on C1 and C3, so on the two extremities of the project. As I mentioned earlier, VMS-style targets, they tend to cluster. And so what we're seeing at the moment, these are the deposits that were found in the 1970s by the geologists mapping on the ground because they outcropped. This whole belt of rocks that extends for about 60 kilometres from north to south, and we've got some additional tenements that we're applying for at the moment, is prospective for the same style of mineralisation. And when I put that in context to the rest of the world, you're going to see how large the opportunity is for a junior company like us. Historically, they did a lot of drilling. They did a lot of metallurgical test work. I can show you some of the rocks, some of the drill holes. If you come to the booth and give us a visit, it's quite spectacular, the actual drill core itself. One of the real keys about finding the neighbouring or the new deposits is using VTEM. And we have a survey across most of the tenement package that has highlighted multiple conductors, which are not outcropping, which are potential targets for us to go and drill. In terms of infrastructure, as I mentioned, we're just north of the capital city, Brasilia. We have a train line nearby. We have power, water, a nearby town, bitumen highways to the site. It really is an envious position in terms of its infrastructure. And more than that, we're really comfortable operating in Brazil. We know the legislation. We know how to deal with the government. We've got a really supportive, because we bought this from the government and they have an ongoing interest in terms of a royalty, they've been really strong partners with us so far. So we're really looking forward to moving forward on this project, and we think there's no red flags in terms of the infrastructure. This is the slide that I really want to focus on, because what I'm trying to do here is put this into context globally. So VMS-style deposits have been known, they occur all around the world. They're most common in Canada. And in Canada, they produce, or they are really important sources of copper, zinc, lead, silver, gold. And when we take the area that we have under tenure at Palma or the Palma Project, and compare it to some of the main known areas within the world, and not just in Canada, but also in South Africa and those other places, these fields are so fertile, and these districts have so many individual deposits within the clusters, that what we have at Palmaropolis, which is currently 4.5 million tonnes, could just be the beginning. So what we're really hoping for is that we find a belt that looks like Noranda or Flin Flon or Kid Creek, which are tens, if not hundreds of millions of tonnes in resource. That's what we see as the opportunity at Alvo. But before we get in front of ourselves, we're focusing on the known targets. So this is the C3 prospect. We've been drilling here since October. We've completed 18 holes. Our first 18 holes, we hit mineralisation in, I think, 17 out of the 18. Not only did we hit the VMS-style mineralisation, but we also found some supergene that hadn't been recognised in the past. Some of the results there are fantastic. 20 metres thick, 35 metres thick, 1.5%, 2% copper, 10, 12, 15% zinc, and we're seeing that significant widths throughout this deposit. I think in terms of being able to read them, I'm sure when you have a look at on your device, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. But our best holes so far have been the deepest holes in that central zone, and that's about 200 metres worth of strike in that central zone. And those deepest holes, I'll show you a cross section in a moment, really illustrate this is open at depth, and this is a resource that will grow. In terms of long section and cross section, on the cross section here you can see on the surface we've hit a broad zone of mineralisation, which is in the oxide. It's called a supergene zone, lower grade, but because it's oxidised it's easier to mine. It would be coming out in an open pit anyway. And then we step down and we've hit this consistently, this VMS zone, which is high grade as we go down. This particular cross section sits right in the middle of the ore body here, in the long section, and as you can see, that central zone, which is about 200 metres of strike length, is open at depth, completely open at depth, and our best holes are at the base. So 36 metres at 1.5% copper, 8.5% zinc, 25 metres at 2% copper, 14% zinc is an example of what the potential is down plunge. C1 prospect, so we've completed 18 holes at C3. We'll go back to that in a couple of months. But right now we're drilling at C1. This is the second prospect that has a resource on it. It's slightly smaller than C3 and slightly lower in copper. What we're seeing at the moment in our drilling is that it looks like it's got higher lead and higher zinc than what the historical numbers would indicate. So we're busy here at the moment. We've completed about 8 holes so far. As I said, we've got 2 rigs drilling. We intend to be to continue here for another 2 months before we send the rigs back to C3. Excuse me. The real key with understanding the potential at C1 and C3 is geophysics. So before Christmas last year, we completed a fixed loop EM survey across C1, across the southern portion only of C1. And what that showed us was a continuous conductor, 1.3 kilometres in strike length, that extended the mineralisation below the known JORC resource that we have here by hundreds of metres down dip. So we're busy testing those down plunge locations now, and we'll be stepping out quite aggressively as we go forward. At the moment, we have both the fixed loop equipment and the downhole equipment in transit to Brazil, and we'll be using that routinely with our own team to follow up on this particular target, but also to target C3 and our extension and our other prospects as well. We see geophysics working really closely hand in hand with the drilling to help us expand, extend, and hopefully discover new prospects. In terms of the regional potential, we managed to take all of the historical information, condense it down, and combine it into a series of exploration targets that we'll touch on a couple of them in a moment. But in this package, what we're seeing on the left-hand side is the VTEM survey that was flown 2008. What that's highlighted in those little green dots are conductors that our geophysicists consider to be really highly prospective. So we'll follow those up, but we'll follow that up with fixed loop surveys on the ground, geochemistry, mapping. We'll do the proper geology. We'll progress these targets as we go, and as we get results, and as we start to firm it up, we'll start stepping out and drilling some of these targets as well. This is one example. This is called, we call it C1 North or JS43. It's a target that sits to the north of C1. So C1 itself has got a strike length of about 1.2 kilometres. Those drill lines are at 100 metre spacing, and that's where they have the 1.8 million tonnes that we talked about just earlier. But about 600 metres to the north, we have this new target. It is a conductor. The 2 holes that were drilled here by the government back in the 1970s had disseminated mineralisation downhole. So we know it's a long strike, we know it's a conductor. This looks like a really hot target for us to go and start with. And we'll put a fixed loop survey across here, and if we get a conductor that we can map, we'll drill it and we'll hopefully make our first real discovery. Another quick prospect which we're quite intrigued by, this is C3, obviously on a big large scale. There's a small conductor associated with the mineralisation, but there's a big conductor that sits over here to the west. We're not sure what that is. It could be lithological, it could be a massive sulphide. We are going to test that. We'll test it with fixed loop survey across it first, and then if it does come back, we'll drill it, and we'll have the rigs on there very quickly. One last comment. I'm getting to hurry up here, but we have another prospect to the south, a little project to the south, over a layered mafic, ultramafic intrusive. This is a project that has, we call it a Cana Brava. It's prospective for nickel, copper, cobalt, and platinum group elements. This is similar to the style of mineralisation that we've seen at Chalice in WA. It's been a very famous discovery. But this prospect is not just a pipe dream. It sits along strike from 2 of the largest nickel mines in Brazil, areas that have been mined for nickel by Anglo American and a company called Nexa for the last 50 years. So they sit about 40 kilometres to the south along the same group of rocks. So we know that the prospect is fertile. We know that this has got some interesting geochemistry across it. This is an early stage asset, but it's something that we're going to focus a little bit of time on this year. So in summary, the next steps for Alvo are as follows. C3, we've finished our first load of drilling. We're going to go back and do some ground geophysics as soon as the equipment arrives on site. Phase 2 drilling will follow immediately after that, where we step out and we try and expand the mineralisation. C1, we'll complete the first round of drilling that we're doing at the moment. We'll we'll continue our fixed loop to the north, and then we'll do downhole geophysics as well to try and really tighten up our drill targeting. The regional exploration will be announcing a program going forward, but at this stage we're really looking at building our footprint within the district, and we'll continue with our technical studies. We're doing a metallurgical test work program here in Australia with samples we're sending over 150 kilograms of drill core from C3, and then C1 will come once we've finished our first phase of drilling. Thank you very much.